Hello again, everybody. It's me, Marcus, and I review stuff usually. Today I'm reviewing the song "White Man's World" by Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit. I guess that's maybe one of his backing bands. But yeah, this comes as a request. So as always, if you would like to request something, please leave a comment down below, and I'll be sure to get to it eventually. Now, I've heard quite a bit of Jason Isbell by now, and I love him. Dude can write lyrics like no one else I've seen in recent memory. Dude, he really gets to me lyrically. He has some just gut-wrenching, gut-punching lines that just really hit home. So I'm looking forward to this one lyrically. Although some of you have told me that there are some people out there who find this song controversial, and I can already see why just with the title "White Man's World." I'm assuming this will address issues of race or inequality or what have you. So really interested to see Isbell's take here. So just know that I'll probably throw my opinions in there somewhere. I'll probably share my experiences as a brown man. It's gonna be an interesting ride. So if you've and here's the thing, guys. Talking about race shouldn't be political. You know what I mean? But sometimes it is. So I don't want anybody here to feel like I'm politically attacking them. Again, I haven't heard the song yet. It could be fairly innocent for all I know. Again, some of you have told me that there is controversy surrounding it, but race shouldn't be politicized. I don't know if that's controversial to say to some of you guys, but we'll get into it. Just know that I may say some shit. All views that are expressed here are views of me and myself only. I can't speak for others. I can't speak for Isbell. Only his music can here, and of course his own words. So take it as it is. If there's a debate in the comments, great. So whatever, I think this is going to be probably. I'm bracing myself because this might be the most controversial song that I've reviewed so far, just because it is on such a timely and important topic. I'm assuming. Again, I haven't listened to the song yet, so I don't know. But just know that if that's not your thing, then it doesn't hurt my feelings if you don't want to watch or if you don't want to participate in the discussion. That's fine. But for those of you who do, let's stop talking. Let's listen to this one. This is again Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit, "White Man's World."
I'm a white man living in a white man's world. Under our roof is a baby girl. I thought this world could be hers one day, but her mama knew better. I'm a white man living in a white man's town. Wanna take a shot of cocaine and burn it down. Mama wants to change that Nashville sound, but they're never gonna let her. There's no such thing as someone else's war. Your creature comforts aren't the only things worth fighting for. Still breathing, it's not too late. We're all carrying one great burden, sharing one fate. I'm a white man living on a white man's street. I got the bones of the red man under my feet. The highway runs through the burial grounds. There's the oceans of cotton. I'm a white man looking in a black man's eyes, wishing I'd never been one of the guys who pretended not to hear another white man's joke. Old times ain't forgotten. There's no such thing as someone else's war. Your creature comforts aren't the only things worth fighting for. You're still breathing, it's Think the man upstairs must have took a vacation. I still have faith, but I don't know why. Maybe it's the fire in my little girl's eyes. Maybe it's the fire in my little girl's eyes.
It's a badass song. I honestly, I don't see why that would be such a controversial song. If there really is controversy surrounding that one, I almost don't know why. Because, he really wasn't like pointing a finger, saying like, hey, this is your fault or their fault, her fault, whatever. It was more so just of like a here's what I observe about the world, and here's how I feel about it. So yeah, I can't imagine why that would be so controversial, other than some people are just easily offended, which is weird because oftentimes you hear people, especially on the conservative side, say like, oh, those liberals are so easily offended, the SJW snowflakes or what have you. But then you see a song like this and suddenly people on that side of the aisle are sort of offended, I guess, or they don't agree with the message or what have you. But I feel like the message here was pretty straightforward. I didn't think it was too controversial, at least not to me, maybe because I already sort of see things in a similar way as Isbell here. So I don't know. I think there's a lot to be said here, and I feel like this is going to be a really long video just because it's going to be me getting my thoughts out. But let's dive into it. I will say, before the lyrical analysis is probably going to take a while. I'll warn you right now. So before I get to that, I do want to say I really enjoyed the instrumentation. I guess I'll start with the instrumentation since that'll be shorter. I really enjoyed it. The bass line throughout really carried me through this song. I was like, that's a nice groove that the bass is putting down. The guitar was fantastic. They even threw a little guitar solo in there for us. I really liked that part. And the drums were fine. Isbell sounds great as always. I thought it was a well-composed song. It was really groovy to me. I actually had this sort of blues, soulful vibe to it, as well as being unmistakably country sounding. So I think Isbell kind of fits in, maybe even with Sturgill Simpson a little bit, where he is sort of combining or mixing or finding a nice fusion between genres here. Instrumentally, vocally, I give it 2 thumbs up. I actually just had a fun time jamming out to this one. Not even to mention the lyrics and what I think about them. So yeah, this was just a fun listen. But anyway, let's get into the lyrics. So, verse 1. I'm a white man living in a white man's world. Under our roof is a baby girl. I thought this world could be hers one day, but her mama knew better. Wow. So I think to me this one is... I do think, there's a reason it's called White Man's World and not just like White Person's World, right? Because I think here he's making a commentary both on race and on gender, or sex, I should say. Well, both. So he's saying, like, I think he recognizes his own privilege in a sense. I'm a white man living in a white man's world, so I'm already kind of privileged, basically. This world was made for me, basically. Under our roof is the baby girl. I'm assuming talking about his daughter. I thought this world could be hers one day, but her mama knew better. So, yeah, that's sad. I think any parent wants the best for their child, wants their child to grow up and be successful. And so he's kind of saying, like, this whole world could be my daughter's one day. But I think when it says her mama knew better, he's saying, like, her mom has probably had to go through oppression or discrimination or just get looked over because of her sex, and that same thing is going to happen one day to his daughter. Unfortunately, I think is what he's saying is, this world wasn't necessarily meant or like catered around her. She's going to have to work extra hard to get to where she wants to be. So it's interesting. There's some actually notes here, as Isbell notes in an interview with Esquire. If you're the person whose problems were solved when you were born, your job is to try to help the people who aren't in that situation, he says. It's very easy to say you're tired of political discussion when all of your problems are solved. I keep trying to think of it that way. Man, I love that line. I love that line. It's very easy to say you're tired of political discussion when all of your problems are solved. I've seen that said so many times People who aren't really into politics, many of them are privileged enough to not have to be into politics because it's not their life on the line. It's not their livelihood on the line. Which I think is kind of what he's saying here. It's like, if you were born rich, wealthy, then things like social services, food stamps, WIC, what have you, those programs probably don't matter to you. Your problem of not having enough to eat or not having somewhere to live was already solved the moment you were born into wealth. And so it's easy to say, like, oh, I'm tired of this political discussion about, who deserves food stamps and who doesn't, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, it's easy to say that because you're not the one going through it. You know what I mean? And he's absolutely right here. There's actually a few more notes here that I want to read. White Man's World is the fourth single off the Nashville Sound. The song addresses the privileges and disadvantages baked into the American system along familiar lines of race, gender, class, and geography. Yet it's remarkably non-accusational, which is how I felt also. I felt like it really wasn't pointing fingers, so I don't understand why people would get offended or upset about this. Focusing on the responsibility of people who benefit from privilege to acknowledge it and do what they can to help more people enjoy the same comforts and assurances, rather than ascribing blame for those injustices on anyone living now. Love that. Jason said the following about the song in an interview with Consequence of Sound. The song discusses my perspective on race and gender. I think its inspiration should be pretty obvious these days. I think my job is to constantly evaluate my role in the human struggle for equality without feeling guilt or shame for things I can't control. Jason Isbell spoke to Uprocks about this song, which was written in the wake of the 2016 election. Okay. My wife was on the road and I was at home with my daughter when that all went down. I was just very grateful that I didn't have to explain that to her because she was just a little over a year old. The song was written out of my anger and frustration. It was a way of me to process that. I was trying to get to the root of my feelings without bringing shame into it because I don't think shame does a whole lot of good. But I was trying to address what I see around me and trying to make it clear that I see it, and that's about the best that I could do with a song. Yeah. Also, I'm not going to lie, I was motivated by the image I have of my audience. There are very few artists, musicians, and entertainers that have the type of demographic of an audience that I have. Somebody like Sturgill Simpson or Chris Stapleton has it. Margot Price has it, and my wife has it. It's an interesting group of people because it's people who listen to a lot of different types of music, like us. I think for the most part, there are people who are pretty open-minded. There is an opportunity there, however small it might be, to get people to think things in a little bit of a different way. I don't think that would be the situation if I was more of an indie musician or if I was less of an indie musician. I think if I was more mainstream, I would have mainstream listeners, and if I was more indie, I would have those kind of listeners. And those folks seem to be fairly polarized as far as what they're willing to let into their ears and what they're willing to let into their brains. Interesting. I think what he's saying here is that when he wrote a song like this, he fully realizes that he has sort of that country music base who may take offense to this song, but he also sort of has that indie music base because he's not super huge yet, that would maybe more so resonate with this song. So I think it's interesting. A lot of interesting stuff here from Isbell, but I think he kind of realized he wanted to write a song about race, sex, gender. Again, without pointing the finger and say this person's to blame or this group of people is to blame. Just more so of an observation. So again, can't understand why people would be offended by it. But we do still see that there are differences between the sexes as far as equality goes. And I went to college. I got a quite useless degree in sociology. Useless in the sense that it's not very good for finding a job, but it is good. It was good for kind of opening my eyes to the world, kind of making me the person that I am, really giving me empathy. I think, and I talked to a former sociology major. He teaches at the same school I teach at, actually. And we were kind of talking, and it's like, yeah, our sociology degrees didn't really help us find a job, but they made us better people. They made us able to empathize with the human condition and with what different populations of people are going through. So I always thank, I guess, myself for choosing that degree path, because as useless as it was for finding a job, it did truly make me a better person, more empathetic towards others, and I see the struggle every day, and I think the reason that Isbell writes this song is that he wants people in positions of privilege to acknowledge their privilege and work to help others reach to that same level as well. So Obviously, as a brown man, I don't have sort of that white man's privilege that Jason Isbell writes about here, but I do have male privilege for sure, and I recognize that quite often, and I, it's very interesting to me how much I'm able to get away with because I'm a guy. Hell, even at work, like as a teacher, as a male teacher in a female-dominated area, as far as elementary school teaching, especially. I'm like a unicorn, and people treat me differently because, oh man, we need male teachers. These kids need a male role model. That many of them don't have dads, and blah 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 blah. So I'm like put on this pedestal when really I'm doing the same job everybody else does. And it's interesting to kind of see that privilege play out in real time at work. And so, I try my best to be cognizant of it and not take advantage of it, and just bless up to people that I see doing great things as well. But at the end of the day, that privilege is there, and it's very weird. And I'm curious to see if the same thing happens to women working in male-dominated fields. And I can already kind of guess that no, it doesn't. It's a totally different experience. So yeah, I try to be aware of what's going on in the world, and how just being born male gives me a privilege to whatever else. But here's the thing, and I think Jason would agree with this. Jason Isbell would agree with this, that it's not my fault for being born male, but it is my responsibility to recognize the privilege behind it, and to address it and be sort of a supportive and sort of be a comrade in a sense, to be a bro about it, not be an asshole and take advantage of it. So I think that's at the end of the day the message here. But anyway, let's keep reading. I'm a white man living in a white man's town. Want to take a shot of cocaine and burn it down. Mama wants to change that Nashville sound, but they're never gonna let her. So to me, that first part is like, I hate this town that I live in because it's backwards. They have these just insane ideas about what's correct. This part though also talks about, I think, music. Mama wants to change that Nashville sound. His wife wants to maybe break out of that same old sound, but the label won't let her. It's kind of, and I think part of that is where Isbell said, yeah, like, I'm writing to my audience. My audience wants to hear that Nashville sound, and so it's kind of like there's a lot going on in this song. So then chorus, there's no such thing as someone else's war. I love that. Your creature comforts aren't the only things worth fighting for. If you're still breathing, it's not too late. We're all carrying one big burden, sharing one fate. I love that. I love that line. There's no such thing as someone else's war. What affects one of us affects all of us. We've seen a lot here in America recently, where it's like, yeah, we are all in this together. As divided as we are as a country right now, especially along political lines, at the end of the day, we're all fighting the same battle, all fighting the same war. The creature comforts aren't the only things worth fighting for. Your creature comforts aren't the only things worth fighting for. So you shouldn't fight just for your own self-interest. You should always have the greater good in mind. If you're still breathing, it's not too late. It's not too late to turn it around. We're all carrying one big burden, sharing one fate. It always bugs me, and this is kind of just I don't want to say a non sequitur, but it has something to do with it. Every time I try not to watch too much news, I guess. But typically when I do, especially around election years, it's like, oh, how is he going to pull down the Latino vote? How is he going to pull down the black vote? What have you? And it's like, well, at the end of the day, we're all fighting the same battle. It's like we all want, enough money to feed our families. We want a good place to live. We want to be able to afford entertainment and what have you. It's like we're all fighting for the same thing. Some of us are fighting for different things, equality, justice, etc. But at the end of the day, everybody wants this very high quality standard of living. So it's like, how do you appeal to the Latino vote? You make sure that people are paid enough. You make sure people have health care. You make sure people have jobs. That kind of thing. It's like, it's almost like, and every time the conversation turns to the Latino vote, it's like, well, what is his plan on border control, border policy? What is his plan on immigration? Blah blah blah. And it's just like, no, like, as a Latino, I don't give a fuck. I mean, I care, obviously, but immigration is sure an important issue, but it's not like the only issue I care about. It's not even in the top 10 issues that I care about, And again, part of it is that it doesn't affect me. I'm a completely legal citizen, as well as my parents, and as well as the rest of my family. All my family is we were born here, raised here, everything. It's like that issue doesn't affect me. What does affect me as a Latino in America is living wages, health insurance, health care, all this other stuff, and of course quality of life for people of different races, sexes, sexualities. So again, sort of a non sequitur, but kind of what he's saying here. We're at the end of the day, we're all battling the same battle, all fighting the same fight. Anyway, verse 3, I'm a white man living in a white man's street. I've got the bones of the red man under my feet. The highway runs to their burial grounds, past the oceans of cotton. Look, there's no sugarcoating it. Colonists came over to the Americas, and there was a mass extinction of Native American peoples. And it is what it is. But here he's not pointing fingers. Again, he's not like saying, as a white man, this is my fault. But I think he does understand that he privileged from this. He benefited from his ancestors coming over here and sort of taking over. He realizes that he lives sort of on these Indian burial grounds. Everything around us is an Indian burial ground, right? But again, I don't think it's like, hey, this is my fault as a white man, because at the end of the day, you're not responsible for the injustices of your ancestors. You're responsible for what you do as a person here and now. And I think that's a big message here. Then verse 4, I'm a white man looking in a black man's eyes, wishing I'd never been one of the guys who pretended not to hear another white man's joke. Oh, the times ain't forgotten. So I think that's a big message here too. He's saying that, when he looks into a black man's eyes, he remembers those times when his friends were probably making racist jokes. And instead of being the person to stand up and say, hey guys, that's really not cool, he was the one just sort of pretending not to hear the joke, or maybe even laughing along with it, what have you. It reminds me of when I go to Whataburger early in the morning, when we used to be able to go to places. There'd always be those old guys sitting there just telling racist jokes, and I'm just like, bruh, like what the fuck? But yeah, it's... that's a hard thing, and I think that at the end of the day, here's the message behind this song. It's, you're not responsible for the past atrocities of your ancestors, but what you are responsible, and this is where it comes through right here, if you're still breathing, it's not too late. What you are responsible for is what you do now in the present, how you make the world more comfortable for others in the present. And then of course, not being that person to just sit back and let racism or sexism happen, but really take a stance to it, and kind of put your foot down. So for me, I completely agree with Isbell here. I think yes, there are sweeping policy changes that need to be made at the government level. Federal, states, even local can do things about this to make equality happen and to make justice happen. But at the end of the day, I feel like true racial equality will only get there if we step up to our neighbors, our friends, our brothers and sisters, our families. It's when we make those connections. It reminds me of some like this quote from Harry Potter. I don't remember. I think it's the first movie where Dumbledore's completely stealing the house cup from Slytherin, but basically he rewards Neville a bunch of points because he's like, it's one thing to stand up to your enemies, it's another thing to stand up to your friends. So that was, to me, that's always been really cool. But I agree, like, you have that racist dad, uncle, brother, sister, wife. I mean, hell, it's hard to tell them, like, hey, what you just said is racist. It's out of pocket. It's not okay. It can be hard sometimes because you still love that person and you want to maintain your respect for them, but at the same time, it's like, wow, So I think what Isbell's saying here is like, yeah, I've been that guy who my friends say something bad and I'm not there to correct them, and I regret that. And honestly, I do too as a person. I know many people who use who've made racist jokes or who have said racist things, and I'm like, man, I should have said something to that person in that moment, and I regret it. It is kind of a hard thing to really stand up to those people and be like, hey, that's just really not cool. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. So then the end here. Of course, again, there's no such thing as someone else's war. Your creature comforts aren't the only things worth fighting for. You're still breathing. It's not too late. We're all carrying one big burden, sharing one fate. I'm a white man living in a white man's nation. I think the man upstairs must have took a vacation. I still have faith, but I don't know why. Maybe it's the fire in my little girl's eyes. Maybe it's the fire in my little girl's eyes. So even here he's saying, like, man, with all the crap going on in the world, it's almost like my faith has been shaken, you know? Why hasn't God stepped in and taken care of this problem already, you know? Maybe it's a fire in my little girl's eyes that keeps me going. So he sees his little girl, he says, you know, I still want to make this world a better place for her. So that's what keeps my faith going. That's what keeps me going. So I think that's kind of it is almost sort of a very positive, almost uplifting way to kind of end the song, saying like our children are the future. If we can teach them right, then hopefully, you know, this problem will go away. I think that's kind of this last message here. So I have a lot more to say about this song, just from my experiences and everything. Yeah, I'm almost at 30 minutes already. I'll try to make it brief. I love the song lyrically. I think it was great. Again, I don't know why people would be so offended by it. I think it has a pretty wholesome message. And, you know, again, the only reason I can think of is kind of what I was saying at the beginning of the video, that race and sex and gender and sexuality shouldn't be politicized. I mean, equality shouldn't be politicized. Treating people fairly and equitably shouldn't be politicized. But I feel like with the political divide in our country right now, this could be seen as a very political thing, which is a shame. And it can divide some people, which is a shame. As a person of color myself, I can't say that I've ever dealt with really, really super overt racism where I'm just like, wow, that was super overtly racist. But I have had my run-ins, you know, here living in Texas in the South. It can be challenging sometimes. I married a white woman, so I often think about how many years ago our love was probably illegal. I say probably, our love was illegal. You know, I wouldn't be able to do that. And so we've made great strides in progress, don't get me wrong, but there's still so much more to go. Can't tell you how many times I've been stared down by old white couples. I remember a specific time at Jason's Deli when I was walking out with my wife, and this dude in a Trump hat was just like staring at me, like mean mugging me hard. And so I've always been kind of brash when it comes to like people who are being racist, especially towards me. So as I'm walking out, I see him just mean mugging me the whole time. Just he wanted to like shoot me down on the spot or some shit. So I made sure to like pull her close and just like love you and like kind of look back at him and see how you know I can be a troll like that sometimes and kind of an asshole. But you know he's the racist one. So same thing. I mean, first time I met my wife's grandparents, they like pulled me aside. I was like, hey, just to warn you, grandma might say some racist shit, so just be on the lookout. I'm just like, cool. I'll take it in stride. My girlfriend before this went to her family's for like Easter or some shit. Before I met her grandparents, they had to pull me aside and say, hey, you know, grandpa's a little racist. You might want to watch out. And again, I've been very brash in the past, and still am sometimes today when it comes to race. And so the moment they told me that their grandpa was racist, like, well, I'm introducing myself to him. What's he gonna do? So I remember that Easter. It was not very fun. I went straight up to her grandpa and introduced myself. Hey, I'm Marcus. How's it going? And dude just did not even look at me in the eye. He did not say a single word to me. He like grunted at me. I was like, hey, I'm Marcus. How you doing? Thank you for having me in your house. I feel very privileged to be here today. And he's just like, I'm like, damn, this dude's so racist. He won't even look me in the eye and talk to me because I'm brown and I'm dating his white daughter. Holy shit. So again, I can't say that I've ever been called any sort of name or attacked because of my race or anything like that, but I have had some run-ins. Even a time when I hung out with my friend, who was another white woman. I know a lot of white women, Jesus. Anyway, when I hung out with my friend who was a white woman, and again, before I went into her house, hey, my dad's a little racist, so sorry. Again, same thing. I'm going to be super brash. Hey, sir, thank you for having me in your house. And again, just, you're welcome, whatever. I'm like, God damn. I just don't get, I don't understand being racist. Like, it's the color of your skin. I truly don't get it, you know. But I've had those experiences, and they're always sort of uncomfortable. But I feel like I always have the moral high ground there. So it's kind of like, oh, what are you gonna do? Nowadays, I don't know if I'm willing to try that as much, just because of you see shit in the news like the people getting shot. I mean, hell, we saw that just recently, that jogger in Georgia be shot by 2 men, and of course the media is now trying to dig up stuff saying like, oh man, he wasn't a perfect angel, so he deserved to get shot, I guess, which is weird because we have a constitution and a bunch of laws that say that there is due process. And that people shouldn't be vigilantes, but that's a discussion for another time. There is still a lot to be said about race in America. You've seen it on the news. Again, a black unarmed jogger gets shot in Georgia by 2 farmers or whatever. And then a group of white conservative people march on the Capitol with AR-15s or assault rifles, whatever the hell you want to call them, guns basically, and nothing happens. There's definitely, to me, privilege out there that needs to be addressed. And here's the thing that people get wrong all the time. White privilege doesn't mean that your life is perfect because you're white. It just means that, kind of what Isbell said, some of your problems in life are already solved because you're white. Some of my problems in life have been solved because I'm a man. Some of my problems in life have been solved because I'm straight. I don't believe homosexuality is a choice. Again, it comes from my background in sociology and what I've learned, what the research says, what the science says. And so it's kind of like I'm very fortunate that many of my problems were solved when I was born, So, yeah, I agree with Isbell here a lot. I think we kind of lean on the same things here. There was a lot more I was going to say about race and my experiences with it, but I'm at 32 minutes now, and I just keep talking, and this is going to be like the longest video I've ever released, especially for like a 4-minute song. There's a lot to say here. But yeah, I think that more or less covers it. I think I'll leave it there. Yeah, love the song lyrically, 2 thumbs up as far as replay value goes, because the song is so strong lyrically and because there's so much great instrumentation. Like I said, real bluesy, cut a nice groove in there, just a good sounding song too. So I'm giving it 2 thumbs up for replay value as well. Really enjoyed this one. Guys, thank you for sticking with me. If you stuck with me for this long, my ramblings and non sequiturs and what have you. So thank you so much. Thanks again for the request. I really like this one. More like this. I've always said I'm a lyrics guy. If there's controversial lyrics out there, if there's interesting lyrics out there, I would love to hear them. So yeah, keep those coming. If you want to listen to some more Jason Isbell, you can find him on my Spotify playlist. It's down in the description below. It's got every single song I've listened to so far on my channel. It's pretty good listen. If you want to support me, it's all the normal stuff you do on YouTube. Like and subscribe and comment. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're staying safe and healthy. Hope to see you in the next video.